Good afternoon, handy viewers and handy listeners, such as you are, and welcome back to the second in our series of Navigating Navigators, as we have just been given preview copies of Fathom. I am joined once again by my colleague and the man whose fault it all is, the man that got me into Guild Ball, Mr. Conor Rooney. Good evening, Conor.
Hello.
Excellent. It's almost like a sound file now. Like you just say hello in the same way every time. He is live, I promise. So, after last week's great excitement of Horizon, we are gifted this time the other fish Navigator crossover in the form of Fathom. Again, I don't want to turn this into a card read. I'm sure everyone has the cards either in front of them or probably memorised and play-tested by the time this podcast comes out at 1 minute past 12 on the Thursday. But Conor, where would you like to start this time? Where does your Navigator excitement take us to at this stage?
Well, I think the most interesting place to start is now that we've seen two cards, we can really start to plot some trends in this team.
Okay.
And not just the ones that we kind of all expected when they got rerolls, which is 2 dice kicks and low tack.
The low tack. Yeah, we did say on the last one that we really expected sort of 4s and 5s to be where we apart from maybe on the big fella whose name I still can't remember. Azimuth, is it?
I think it's Azimuth.
Something like this. I don't think it's Azimuth. Isn't he in Diablo?
Anyway. No, I think that's Azeroth. Anyway. Whatever.
Exactly. Fathom. Well, let's go with Fathom. Let's go with the Moana lookalike Fathom. So yeah, we had talked about on the previous podcast about how what I described as the anti-Masons playbook. In that all of the momentum is at the top end, the tack is low, but with that guild rule precise calculations, hopefully the rerolls lets you get nearer the top end after the reroll. But what other sort of similarities are you seeing?
Well, they've got that glorious tackle double dodge momentously on 4 again, which is such an amazing result.
You have 3 tackle double repositions with Jack and Horizon and Fathom now. That's like half a team, mate.
Yeah, and man, when you hit that, it is tasty. With the release of Horizon, there was a lot of talk on the various social medias about likelihoods of hitting that, and I realized just how bad at math I am, that I just assumed that it would be worse against armored models.
Okay.
But actually, you're really likely to hit it charging a 3-2 model, even if it def stances, whereas a 4-1 model def stancing, you probably don't hit it. Okay. And I actually thought it would be the opposite.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but I guess the low defense is the contributing factor there.
Exactly. It just, I mean, the downside, of course, is if you are engaged with them and you have to not charge, you're not doing anything. And so Fathom struggles with that as well, because once again we've got a tackle and a 1 damage on the first 2 columns, non-momentous, but it's flipped this time.
Yes, I had seen some conversations online about, well, what happens if Horizon only gets 1 net hit? Does that mean, like, surely I can take does that mean I can take a result that I can't have? And it's like, no, the rules of the game are still very much in effect. If you can't take the results, then you can't take the result. You don't.
Well, and it's not like that's the first time this has come up, right?
Exactly,
I mean, there's models that only have 1 damage on 1.
And if that comes up across tough hide, 100%, mate. 100%.
Yeah. I don't know why people found that so confusing.
I think it was short-lived. I think it's fair to say that was short-lived. But okay, it's interesting then that you've reversed sort of that hot take that we had last week in terms of the armor. I suppose you are still taking away the net hits from the armor, but especially if they're knocked down, the low defense coming into effect. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is, I actually think, although it's the same archetype as Horizon's playbook, her playbook's a lot worse than his.
Okay. Why is that?
I think having your first momentous result on 3 just be a 1 dodge instead of a push dodge means she's pretty much never getting the double reposition on the counter. Horizon won't get it much, but at least it's possible. And The big one for me, though, is that swapping the 1 damage and the tackle, Horizon's just unbelievably reliable getting that tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And Fathom's not
Yeah, I don't
in the
suppose,
same way.
like, one
And you
damage.
won't hit it on the wrap as much.
Sure, and like one damage in a guild that doesn't have tooled up in the form of fish and doesn't have any. All right, you've got access to weak points with Sakana, but you don't have anything really associated with a damage buff. So having 1-on-1, not as important in fish as say it would be in butchers or something like that.
Yeah. And having 2 non-momentous on 4 instead of unexpected arrival is also a huge loss.
Yes, I can see
so
that.
I don't think 2-4 influence is a big difference, and having an 8-inch kick is obviously quite a big deal as well.
Yeah.
Which brings up the fact that with an 8-inch kick, 8-inch move, and acrobatics, she's got a pretty, like, a super reliable 18-inch threat range.
And let's not forget
let's
not forget light-footed in there as well. That's,
yes.
That
Which
does
is
make
nice.
a significant bonus. When light-footed, I've always found is one of those things that when it gets taken away from you, you really miss. You know that
Definitely.
sort of when Midas lost light-footed, that was a big moment. It doesn't feel like it was going to be initially, but it is a big moment. Equally, when Theron gained light-footed, that was a huge moment for him in terms of his mobility. So I really like that Fathom, like Shark, has that trait, so that you know whatever it is they're moving, that's what they're moving.
She also has another trait Shark has, which Horizon didn't, which is 2-inch reach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, of everyone that we'd seen sort of the artwork on Navigators, 2-inch reach on Fathom isn't a big surprise, seeing she's carrying around that
I think we
massive
were
spear.
all expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. But it certainly does make her more viable in the fish lineup, in my mind.
Well, it's been really interesting because with Horizon very much resembled Grayscales in the fast, zippy 6-inch kick dodges around, whereas Fathom resembles Sakana a lot more with the 8-inch kick, 8-inch sprint, 2-inch reach.
I can see that. Yeah,
it's a shallower comparison because Sakana's mostly good because he's an all-rounder and really good at generating momentum, and she's not really that. But she does bring some really interesting new tools to fish.
Okay. I mean, it's not. I mean, I know you put Hemlock in as your union choice in your Fish 10, largely for smelling salts.
Yeah, I usually have Gutter in that slot, but I've been trying out Hemlock for smelling salts.
So
I don't think the loss of Gutter's really worth it. But yeah, the fact that you can get it in faction, well, I guess everything's going to be in faction because we'll lose union. But I was actually very happy that they gave us access to smelling salts because that's something I really liked.
But now that we have this access to smelling salts, it also answers a question from the podcast that we did with Panzer on season 4 changes in terms of how AoEs will be measured. We can now see that smelling salts is a 2-inch range AoE.
The half-inch of range loss there is going to hurt a lot.
That is big. That is big. And it's also interesting to see, and again, this is purely sort of me more on the rules lawyer or pundit or TO standpoint of things, that it doesn't say 3-inch AoE, it just says AoE. So we can, we're sort of establishing here that all AoEs are the template that we have from Frozen Forge or from Use on Minis. Just that 3-inch diameter circle is an AoE. We don't need to say 3-inch AoE. We're repeating ourselves. Move on. So that's. I know. I get that. I'm moving away slightly from sort of the Navigator preview aspect of this podcast. However, from a rules standpoint, that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think that's an important tool they're trying to give to more teams in the game. But as much as I was super hyped when I first saw this card, thinking, oh, this is really going to help against Ballista with Shark Fish. But then, of course, with the Season 4 rules change, there's only going to be about probably 3 weeks. And to be honest, I probably won't ever paint it immediately. So maybe one event where I'll be running them in Fish in Season 3 at most. So that won't be quite as useful as I thought. But it still really handy in especially in matchups with multiple people that can put out conditions. Like if you're dealing with smoke, barring all changes in season 4, but just saying she can still move AoEs. Someone puts burning on Shark, you can then use her to clear it, and if they put it back on, you can use momentum to clear it.
Well, that's a
So
very interesting
it's
point
still
there.
useful.
Because I'd forgotten that, and am I right in thinking that Navigators will become available before Season 4?
I believe, barring any navigators getting lost at sea, it'll be about 3 weeks
so,
before
so
or a month
presumably then,
before.
there will be a period of time where Fathom has a 2-inch range smelling salts that you measure to the center of the AoE.
Oh yeah, I had not realized that. Oh,
that's
that's gonna be well.
that's
I
rough.
think that probably seals the fact that I won't be playing these guys in season 3, but also
So
be the fact that I spent a lot of time painting my fisherman models, and it's probably going
fair
to take
enough.
me ages to get these guys done anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, one of the big things that we focused on when we were talking about Horizon was his survivability. Those 8 wounds and the 3-1 death and armor. Certainly not the case here with Fathom. Quite a below average, but still reasonably healthy, and then 5-0 defense. Certainly, these are stat lines that you're used to seeing in Fish with Siren and with Angel. So, how does that sit with you?
Well, that's what's interesting is at first glance, you're like, oh, 2-inch reach, 12 boxes, 5-0. That's pretty solid.
Mm.
Um, but the difference is Angel has nimble and a push
Yep.
dodge on 2, and Siren has beautiful and just is mostly at
Charmed
range.
male.
Whereas
Yeah.
pretty much anything Fathom does, she can kind of support from the back a little with smelling salts, but most of her stuff is she's a footballer.
100%.
So she won't be hiding quite as much as Siren, and I think she's going to die a lot. It's
Okay.
one of the things into some teams at least, because her counterattacks are atrocious.
Hmm.
They're probably the worst counters available in Fish.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe Hag, I'd have to look, but yeah, if you're, I mean, against most models in the game, you cannot even hit a double reposition, even if
No.
all your dice hit.
Mm.
Um,
I mean, even Hag has
so
as a dodge on 2.
yeah, exactly. So she's pretty bad defensively.
Mm.
5 defense is good and it helps. And it
Sure.
means at range she's not too bad. But yeah, she's gonna get eaten real fast. And unlike Horizon, she will be out of play for a bit when she comes
Mm.
back on because she doesn't have the cool coming back on. However, one of the things we haven't touched upon yet is she's situationally even faster in that she's
Yes.
already got an accessible 10-inch move with Sprint, Aid, and Acrobatic, but she's also got a really interesting heroic play, which also makes me kind of compare her more to original Sakana, just because of wanting to start within 1 inch of terrain. And it's what the cool thing though is you can do it whenever. So if you're within an inch of terrain and have momentum, you can just make a 4-inch dodge, or you could
Yep.
sprint, attack someone, gain momentum, and then dodge away if they're
Oh,
near
that's nice.
terrain.
Yeah, I like that. That's very
So
nice.
yeah, she's if she had a better counterattack, she'd actually be quite tricky to kill because she's so good at disengaging, which is
Yes.
also seeming to become a theme in this team. Is
Mm.
offensive disengagement. They're much worse at defensively disengaging with like unpredictable movement and strong counters that Fish have, but in their
Yep.
activation, they're very strong at it, which
Yeah,
is
this is
hugely important because this team does not want to make attacks in a scrum.
now we're seeing much more of almost like a J-car conditional back to the shadows. In that you have to do something, but you can then get away. Whether that's representative, I don't know, of changing tides of the Navigators from a sort of a story or fluff perspective, but it's certainly very interesting.
But she's actually also got at the moment the longest goal threat in Fish other than Shark, if you
Okay,
can use the heroic.
right.
So yeah, having a 22-inch goal threat
Whew.
is in itself a huge value, especially when receiving if you're against a team that has good ball pressure. She
Sure.
can sit back a fair ways. And I actually think that's kind of where you'll see her is against teams with obscene ball pressure. She can thread a goal, but she can also get someone else who we may not be seeing much at the moment, but who we might see more with this character because fish have linked.
Yes. Now this is a huge thing as far as I can see, because whereas all right, with the exception of Honor and Harmony with their linked activation, which I think arguably is the best linked activation in the game.
Oh, it still is for sure too.
Absolutely, but most of the time where I tend to see it is Zarola and Farhad. But this is considerably better, I think.
This feels the most like Pinvice's because I
Yes.
don't think you do a ton of work in Fathom's activation. Like a lot of Honor Harmony ones are just 10 influence killing a character.
Mm.
And you're not going to do that. Although you could put 8 influence into probably doing 8 damage to someone, I guess, non-momentously. And there's probably a time in a game where that will be the right choice. But for the most part, there's kind of 2 ways I've been thinking about this, which is mid-game getting a Fathom goal and immediately linked to Angel to pressure the kickoff.
Yep.
And the other one is actually turn 1 against really strong kickoff pressure. What you can do is basically pass the ball from Fathom to Angel, dodge her up, and then have her score before they can do anything.
Oh, I like that. So let's say you've got the standard mist slash vitriol kickoff. One of Fathom goes and retrieves the ball, sets up Angel, off Angel goes. So before even Mist has the chance to sort of screech in and take the ball, you've already scored.
Exactly. So
That's
a lot of the time
huge.
you
Yeah, I
can't
love that.
score without taking the dodge into threat range. And it's a lot better against some teams than others because it gives your opponents 2 activations at the end of the turn, which means they can probably pass the ball to their kickoff model and snapback goal.
But if they do that, then presumably we're talking a Shark lineup here with Angel and Fathom. At which point, Shark can go off and score, Sakana could go off and score, or Angel is nimbled and set up within snapshot range, and either Corsair or Shark can get the ball to Angel, and you're 2 goals up by the halfway through turn 1.
Exactly. I don't think I've ever scored 2 goals turn 1 because I tend to try to score last activation when receiving.
Yes, yeah.
And I think this actually would change that in some matchups where I'd want to get an early Angel goal and then try to put pressure on the ball for the end of the turn, or like mid-turn Angel goal, and then because she's so safe when she's nimble.
Yeah, especially if she's in cover as well.
And then if you can, do it before you activate Shark and Siren or Hag, what you can even do is bring her like almost the whole way back, where you score with her, slide away, then have Hag go or Shark go, and Tidal Surge or Fisher's Reel her back even further. So you can basically bring her back to safety if you want to, which is interesting. I think there's a lot of really interesting receiving tech with Fathom and Horizon. Like I think Horizon against, say, Vet Decimate, who's a huge problem for kickoff pressure, but has low defense, he can pretty reliably charge her and hit the unexpected arrival.
Yeah.
And if you just unexpected arrival her 4 inches backwards, she'll probably kill him. But now you've got enough space that you can comfortably score the goal. So there's a lot of really interesting. I again still mostly thinking about it from a Shark perspective because until we see the captain of the Navigators, it's really hard to judge exactly where they're going to fit.
Sure, no, that makes sense.
Equally, but I will say that the trend of being poor at getting momentum continues. And in a team with Shark or Corsair, who are momentum machines, it's not the end of the world. But so far, we're 0 for 2 on good momentum generation in Navigators. So we'll see if anything changes that, especially since Angel and Siren are the crossovers, and they're also not very good at generating momentum. I think that Navigators are going to have a really interesting play style, because I keep thinking of them compared to current Sharkfish and compared to what it's looking like the order's going to be. And Sharkfish just have really good stats and really strong momentum generation.
Yeah.
And the order have a ton of janky ball movement, which lets them score from miles outside of threat ranges. With a risk, but they can do it. And Navigators are kind of interesting because they're faster than both teams, but they're easier to kill and worse at generating momentum or scoring VP outside of goals.
Yeah.
So at the moment, the only advantage they really have is speed and reliability of scoring a goal when you have the momentum.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm wondering...
So it's going to be really interesting to see where... I mean, we've seen the whole box of models, and you can... I think it's pretty likely to bet the shirtless dude is going to be another fast ball-scoring model. Yeah, I could be wrong, but it just feels that way.
Certainly.
And so it's really going to come down to what does the big dude and the captain bring that allows you to score VP? Because at the moment, they look super fun. And when you hit your tackle double dodges, they're going to feel super annoying. But if your opponent just stands in cover with the ball right now, other than Siren, they don't have much to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm really curious where their momentum generation comes from. Will we see something, maybe a character play, maybe sort of a Smoke or Ballista style inspiration aura that allows them to generate momentum in another fashion? Now, that's massive speculation on my part, but because right now I don't see that it comes from the melee.
No, I don't either, and it's very interesting because they get a ton of value out of crowd outs, but the problem is they don't fight, and the general thing I kind of look at with them is you will want to be crowding out them, but they won't really want to crowd out you because the whole way they look to play is a lot like Sharkfish or Order, where you need to spread out to threat the ball. But if you're doing that, you're not getting tack bonuses.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the time they have to charge to do anything.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say that, assuming we still have the same game plan plot cards that we have now, and I think that's a reasonable assumption. I can't see them change.
No, it doesn't sound like they're going to.
No, I don't think they will. So Grudge Match is going to be a huge value to the Navigators purely because of that tack bonus and how that will interact with the precise calculations.
Yeah, Fullback's another one I really like, especially on Horizon, because it kind of makes up for, much like you like it, I like it on Shank for the same reason, a winger with 2-3 and a dodge. Yeah, it's interesting because they kind of need to charge to generate momentum.
Yeah. Which is going to
make them... if they don't get the ball from it, they can still get the ball with a counter. Yeah. I mean, with another attack if the opponent doesn't counter. Because their tackles are still reachable with normal attacks, but their momentum isn't. Which is kind of the opposite of Fish in some matchups, where you struggle sometimes to get the tackle, but you can always get momentum.
That makes sense.
And the upside with that is you can just use that momentum to bonus time.
Yep,
to try to get the tackle, whereas you can't do it the opposite way.
So before we sort of disappear off into speculating about the rest of the Navigators, which is a reasonable thing for a podcast entitled Navigators to do, but right now, by way of a sort of 2-minute conclusion and summary, Horizon, Fathom, these are the two players that you will be adding into your Fish lineup at the expense of Union. Are you happy with that exchange?
I love both these models, and I am super excited to play them. I started much more into Fathom, and I've kind of turned around the more I think about the Season 4 changes, the more I think Smelling Salt's not as valuable as I give it credit for, and the more I think about Horizon's insane flexibility, I think I lean now slightly more towards him.
Okay.
But let's see what happens with Angel in season 4.
Perfect. Conor, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. And thank you very much for those of you that have listened both to this and our previous podcasts. There will be more just as soon as we know more. And until next time, oh handy listeners and viewers such as you are, I still need a better outro.